Jeffrey Dahmer is here having pled guilty to 15 murders. Jeffrey Dahmer is here because certain doctors indicated that he was insane at the time he committed the offenses. Now, we're going to use a lot of words. We're going to use a lot of words because a lot of the words say the same thing, but we know what the definition of insanity is in the state of Wisconsin, and you probably can recite it as well as any lawyer who's ever studied law, and that is whether or not a person at a given moment in time was suffering from a mental disease, and as a result of that mental disease, that person lacked substantial capacity to conform his conduct to requirements of law or appreciate the wrongfulness of his conduct. Now, the reason for that is clear, because some people can conform but can't appreciate, and some people can't appreciate but maybe can't conform. There is no wrongfulness of the conduct issue here. It has been admitted, it has been not fought, it has been accepted that I have not been able to sustain my burden of proof from the moment this trial started on the question of whether or not he appreciated right from wrong. He did. So I'm here to talk to you about whether or not this mental disease that we have proffered was met to a reasonable degree of certainty by the greater weight of the credible evidence. And if I have shown that, and I don't mean I like I'm on an ego trip, my job is, if I have achieved that, then the next question is, as a result of that mental disease, did he lack substantial capacity to conform his conduct to the requirements of law? And I submit to you, that's the only question that you're going to have to wrestle with, because the mental disease was proven to a reasonable certainty by the greater weight of the credible evidence. You know, we got a lot of a la carte Americans in this country. They want to rewrite the Constitution. They really want to rewrite the Declaration of Independence. They want to tell you, well, in this kind of a case, forget justice. Come on, he killed all these people, forget it. It's all over with. He doesn't deserve the time of day. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. They're boat people, that's what they are. They should get on boats and get out of here and go live in a country where that kind of stuff goes on. It doesn't go on in America, because we live in a country where we all are entitled to liberty and justice. And justice is met by your verdict. Not by what I think, not by what Mr. McCann thinks, not by what these 7 doctors think or the judge thinks. It's what you think. That's what justice is. And whichever way you call it, it's justice. As long as we subscribe to the oath that we took. I have tried, in order to keep this thing to some kind of a logical explanation, drawn up the Jeffrey Dahmer human being. And this is what I see about this Jeffrey Dahmer as a total human being, a person who's into fantasy, drugging, keeping skulls in locker, cannibalism, sexual urges, drilling, making zombies, necrophilia, disorders, paraphilias, watching videos, getting excited about eggshells, drinking alcohol all the time, into a dysfunctional family, trying to create a shrine, showering with corpses, going into the occult, having delusions, chanting and rocking, picking up roadkill, having obsessions, murders, lobotomies, deflection, masturbating 3-4 times a day, 2-3 times a day as a youngster, going and trying to get a mannequin home so he can play sex with a mannequin, masturbating into the open parts of the human being's body, calling taxidermists, going to graveyards, going to funeral homes, wearing yellow contacts, posing people who are dead that he killed for pictures, masturbating all over the place. This is Jeffrey Dahmer. My little star, my little circle, would say lawyer, father, sports, happy. I have only positives. There isn't a positive thing on this. This is a young man who never had a relationship with another male on a friendly basis for a day's time. This is a boy who at the age of 15 or 16 found himself sick. And if it's so simplistic that too bad, so bad, he could have done something about it, it's his own fault, so anything that happened after that is his own fault. then we're not talking about justice. Then we're talking about a lot of other things. We're talking about just neglecting the realities of life. But if we look at a guy who's sick and say just how bad was that sickness, then we're doing justice to the question, whatever the result of the question is.
This is a 15-count murder case. You've got 3 experts, none of them testified in a murder case before. Dr. Fred Berlin has testified in responsibility 7 to 9 times on responsibility, and has never testified on responsibility in a murder case. Never testified on responsibility in a murder case. And he is the only identified forensic psychiatrist by Dr. Dietz who subscribes to the idea that a paraphilia is a defense on a responsibility issue. He is the only one, Dr. Dietz said, that he knows of that would say what this man has is a defense to a murder case. Hence, he's appearing here for his first experience as testifying on non-responsibility in a murder case. Dr. Becker, a nice lady. Dr. Berlin as well, in terms of treatment, yes. Dr. Becker has never testified on responsibility. She told you, not just in a murder case, she has never testified on anything from disorderly conduct upward. Never testified on a murder responsibility case. Dr. Wallstrom never testified in a murder case. Dr. Wallstrom completed his training, his fellowship. Although he'd been a doctor several years, he completed his fellowship in July of 1992. He is less, today when he testified, he was less than 7 or 8 months out of his training period. Less than 7 or 8 months out of his training period. He had never testified in a murder case, or a robbery case, or a burglary case. He has testified once before. He's testified on an exposure, in an indecent exposure case. So between all 3 of the defense experts, you've got Berlin 7 to 9 times, you've got Wallstrom once, so that would make that 10, and you've got Becker never. So 10 altogether among the 3 of them. They've testified 10 times on responsibility and never testified in a murder case. You got to shake your head on that one and say, hey, what's going on here? What's going on here? You've got a defense, you've got Dr. Berlin heading the team, raising a defense that Dr. Dietz said the forensic psychiatry community simply does not support. That's what the defense is here. And you have to ask why these totally, almost totally, well, on murder, among 3 of them, 10 appearances on responsibility among the 3 of them. We brought to this courtroom hundreds of experiences through Dr. Dietz and Dr. Fosdell. The court appointed Dr. Palermo with hundreds of times. You think the court would appoint someone 6 months, 8 months out of training? What do you say about that? 8 months out of training. You've got to seriously weigh that and say, what's going on in this courtroom with a serial killer, 15 murders charged, at least 17 that he's involved in, and we wind up with 3 experts who have never testified in a murder case and altogether have only testified 10 times on the issue of mental responsibility. What's going on here?
Jurors, I am now going to read your verdicts to you, after which I will make inquiry of you as to whether or not, indeed, I have accurately read the verdicts to you. In the state of Wisconsin versus Jeffrey Dahmer, case number F912542, a special verdict. Question 1. At the time the crime was committed in count 1 of the information in regard to the death of James E. Dockstader, did the defendant, Jeffrey L. Dahmer, have a mental disease? Answer, no. There are 2 dissenting jurors as to question 1. As to question 1, it's signed by as the foreman of the jury. State of Wisconsin versus Jeffrey L. Dahmer, case number F912542, special verdict, question number 1. At the time the crime was committed in count 7 of the information in regard to the death of...
The jurors' names have been deleted to protect their anonymity.
Have a mental disease. Answer.
Now, they only had to answer
Question number
2 questions.
need not
Number
be
1,
answered.
did he have a mental
They were
disease?
defending jurors.
And if he did, number 2, could he control himself?
Question number 1.
Right now,
The
they are
15th day of
answering
February,
to
1992,
the first
and
question,
signed by
and
foreman of the jury.
if they find that he
And
did not
jurors,
have a
other
mental
than for
disease,
the dissenting jurors,
then
do you
they
all
don't have
agree
to
that
answer
he
the
is
second
delivered?
question.
State of Wisconsin versus Jeffrey L. Dahmer, case number F912542, special verdict. Question number 1. The time the crime was committed in count 15 of the information in regard to the death of Joseph Bredehoft, did the defendant Jeffrey L. Dahmer have a mental disease? Answer, no. Question number 2 need not be answered. Dated at Milwaukee, Wisconsin, this 15th day of February, 1992.
Perhaps it can best be said in St. John's chapter 15, verse 13. Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. Edward Warren Smith tried to be Jeffrey Dahmer's friend. As a result, he lost his life. Mr. Dahmer, Eddie's gone now, the victim of your senseless killing. Where do we go from here? We ask ourselves. Why did this happen to a person like Eddie? He gave so much and asked so little. All he wanted was a chance to be himself. A chance to be happy. When all the facts are known, we hope that society will have gained some knowledge that will help prevent a tragedy such as the one Eddie suffered.
Despite the fact that you had the knives, the saws, the bats, the acid, the drills, and possibly a gun, even while he was in a semi-conscious state of mind, you didn't give him the chance to fight for his life. You took his life like a thief in the night by cutting his throat. Rather than facing him and let him fight for the thing that he felt most dear, you took the coward way out. Did you ever stop to think that this was someone's son? Did you ever stop to think that this is someone's brother, nephew, uncle, cousin, grandson, or just someone's friend?
My name is Shirley Hughes, and I'm Tony Anthony Hughes' mother. First of all, thank God, and to give thanks to the judge and to Mr. McCann for the verdict that came in. I would like to say to Jeffrey Dahmer that he don't know the pain, the hurt, the loss, and the mental state that he had put our family in.
You took my 17-year-old son away from me. I'll never get a chance to tell him that I loved him. I'd have a chance to tell him that I loved him the last time I saw him, which will be a year tomorrow. You took my daughter's only brother away from her. She'll never have a chance to sing and dance with him again. You took my mother's oldest grandchild from her, and for that I can never forgive you.
You killed my brother, Richard Guerrero. You also killed my father and my mother's youngest future. And my 3 brothers' lives, including my life, my husband, and my 3 children, will never forget this tragedy that you inflicted upon us. Therefore, I would like to end my speech by saying in my language that Jeffrey, you are el diablo, el puro diablo que estaba suelto en las calles de nosotros. That means the devil, the pure devil that walked our streets and was loose. So, Your Honor, please, I beg you, don't let this man ever walk our streets or see daylight again.
This man should never be able to walk the face of earth or to be able to harm anyone else again. I want a few more things I want to say in my heart. I want to thank the jury for seeing this man for what he is, a sneaky, conniving person that if he had a chance, he would constantly do this again. So I thank the jury for seeing this man for what he is. I want to thank E. Michael McCann, district attorney, for being there with the families, seeing the families suffer this way, and to realize that we all have feelings.
For the Bredehouse family, as much as love in our family and close. My mother gave 5 beautiful kids. He destroyed the baby of the family. And I hope you go to hell. I love this world. You guys did a wonderful job. Bottom of my heart, thank to God, I got a lot of strength. Thank you all.
Hello, my name is Marilyn Sears. I'm the mother of Anthony Lee Sears. And I just wanted to know, just why, why would it be my son, I just want to thank E. Michael McCann for the good job he did. Well, you did a good job too, but I'm glad McCann won it. And I want to thank the jury, and I want to thank you, Judge. And just keep this man off the street, please.
No, ma'am. You'll address the court from...
My name is Rita Isbell, and I'm the oldest sister of Errol Lindsay. Whatever your name is, Satan. I'm mad. This is how you act when you are out of control. I don't want to ever see my mother have to go through this again. Never, Jeffrey. Jeffrey, I hate you, mother. I hate you. This is out of control. Don't with me, Jeffrey. I'll kill you. God damn it. Look at me, mother. I can kill you.
Concentrate fast.
I can kill you, mother. You don't have to
Your Honor, it is over now. This has never been a case of trying to get free. I didn't ever want freedom. Frankly, I wanted death for myself. This was a case to tell the world that I did what I did not for reasons of hate. I hated no one. I knew I was sick or evil or both. Now I believe I was sick. The doctors have told me about my sickness, and now I have some peace. I know how much harm I have caused. I tried to do the best I could after the arrest to make amends, but no matter what I did, I could not undo the terrible harm I have caused. My attempt to help identify the remains was the best that I could do, and that was hardly anything. I feel so bad for what I did to those poor families, and I understand their rightful hate. I know I will be in prison for the rest of my life. I know that I will have to turn to God to help me get through each day. I should have stayed with God. I tried and failed and created a holocaust. Thank God there will be no more harm that I can do. I believe that only the Lord Jesus Christ can save me from my sins. I have instructed Mr. Boyle to end this matter. I do not want to contest the civil case. I've told Mr. Boyle to try and finalize them if he can. If there is ever any money, I want it to go to the victims' families. I have talked to Mr. Boyle about other things that might help ease my conscience in some way of coming up with ideas on how to make some amends to these families, and I will work with him on that. I want to return to Ohio and quickly end that matter so that I can put all of this behind me and then come right back here to do my sentence. I decided to go through this trial for a number of reasons. One of the reasons was to let the world know that these were not hate crimes. I wanted the world in Milwaukee, which I deeply hurt, to know the truth of what I did. I didn't want unanswered questions. All the questions have now been answered. I wanted to find out just what it was that caused me to be so bad and evil. But most of all, Mr. Boyle and I decided that maybe there was a way for us to tell the world that if there are people out there with these disorders, maybe they can get some help before they end up being hurt or hurting someone. I think the trial did that. I take all the blame for what I did. I hurt many people. The judge in my earlier case tried to help me, and I refused his help, and he got hurt by what I did. I hurt those policemen in the Conorak matter, and I shall ever regret causing them to lose their jobs. And I hope and pray that they can get their jobs back, because I know they did their best, and I just plain fooled them. For that, I am so sorry. I know I hurt my probation officer, who was really trying to help me. I am so sorry for that, and sorry for everyone else that I have hurt. I have hurt my mother and father and stepmother. I love them all so very much. I hope that they will find the same peace I am looking for. Mr. Boyle's associates, Wendy and Ellen, have been wonderful to me, helping me through this worst of all times. I want to publicly thank Mr. Boyle. He didn't need to take this case, but when I asked him to help me find the answers and to help others, if I could, he stayed with me and went way overboard in trying to help me. Mr. Boyle and I agreed that it was never a matter of trying to get off. It was only a matter of which place I would be housed the rest of my life, not for my comfort, but for trying to study me in the hopes of helping me and learning to help others who might have problems. I know I will be in prison. I pledge to talk to doctors who might be able to find some answers. In closing, I just want to say that I hope God has forgiven me. I know society will never be able to forgive me. I know the families of the victims will never be able to forgive me for what I have done. I promise I will pray each day to ask for their forgiveness when the hurt goes away, if ever. I have seen their tears, and if I could give my life right now to bring their loved ones back, I would do it. I am so very sorry. Your Honor, I know that you are about to sentence me. I ask for no consideration. I want you to know that I have been treated perfectly by the deputies who have been in your court and the deputies who work the jail. The deputies have treated me very professionally, and I want everyone to know that. They have not given me special treatment. Here is a trustworthy saying that deserves full acceptance. Christ Jesus came into the world to save sinners, of who I am the worst. But for that very reason I was shown mercy, so that in me, the worst of sinners, Christ Jesus might display his unlimited patience as an example for those who would believe in him and receive eternal life. Now to the King eternal, immortal, invisible, the only God, be honor and glory forever and ever. I know my time in prison will be terrible, but I deserve whatever I get because of what I have done. Thank you, Your Honor, and I am prepared for your sentence, which I know will be the maximum. I ask for no consideration.
Count 15, life imprisonment with parole eligibility to be 70 years after the inception of that sentence to be consecutive to count 14. I believe I have, and I intended to follow the recommendation of the state. I could have said something different which would have had the same impact. I really see nobody gains anything by just to say more and more years. The important point is that the sentence is structured in such a way that this defendant will never again see freedom. That is owed to this community in order to protect the community, as well as acknowledgement of the seriousness of the offenses. Those are the reasons. The sentence, of course, is to the state prison system. One thing I didn't provide, all of these sentences are consecutive to the time he's presently serving.
What's your client's reaction? What was your reaction to the statements of the families, of course, and particularly the outbursts?
Well, let me tell you about all of them. I think they were, those people showed great dignity today. And even the lady and her outburst was most expected. I had anticipated that maybe there would be more of that. But the outburst, in my opinion, was appropriate. I always try and judge other people by what I would do in the same or similar circumstances. So I think that all people showed the appropriate dignity, and the outburst was not unexpected. And when I mentioned to Mr. Dahmer, when I went back to him and I said, "You all right?" He says, "I can understand why that happened." So there was no, "Oh my goodness, that shouldn't have happened" kind of thing. So
I'm happy this is over, and I suspect for some reason you're probably happy too. You've had such gracious accommodations here from Milwaukee County. Very pleased, obviously, with the verdicts that the jury handed down. Very pleased with the sentencing by the judge. I'm very confident that Mr. Dahmer will never again be on the streets of any city in the world.
What's your understanding of the sentence? How long? What is it?
Well, the first two are life plus 10. We would not qualify for parole except for 13 years on the first two counts, which would be 26 years. On the remaining 13 counts, it would be 70 years before parole consecutively on each count, which I compute to be 910, so you're talking about 936, 937 years. Yes, for parole. Our state statute, however, on sentencing on the last 13 counts has not yet been attacked at the highest level, nor in the federal courts. But even if it were successfully attacked, certainly the 13-year rule would apply, so you're talking about well over 130 years, so there's no likelihood of him ever being released.
The way it stands now, 936 years.
That's right.
He would be eligible.
Yes, eligible after 930. Methuselah himself would feel diminished.